Hello, agus Steve, a chuirde. We're great with the fáilte. Chuig an session Sean you and we'll got in an on me a clustal a bit of the shach or so chat go back in me which have been on me a clustal. Come on, we're great with the fáilte Lynn and Sharmaidson. We can hear sessions in a 3-session oldest agrawagan or her sort Mara. Is mission babe showing agus my gubber le Údarás na Ghaeltachta le rábhlín zéig an nuas. Tá ag léile cuasaí Turasóireacht Nationality chundé Ghaeltachta. Agus ar nóid tá sé an na 7 chundé sin ar an cósta. Agus tá go leor deisní an chun cuairteoirí a bhealach an fannacht sa Ghaeltacht agus chun an chahabhlinn. Agus as tócha chun sulta bans as an achonítach seo agus creidimiid go leor deisní an sin le fhorbairt fós. You're all very welcome to today's Marine Tourism Seminar. This is one of 3 that we'll be doing over the next 3 Thursdays. And just for your information, we're recording all the sessions. Béim ag tafa doing the session. We've organised for simultaneous translation for those who don't understand Irish, so keep an eye on the chat box. It'll be bullet points. It won't be 100% translation, but hopefully you'll get the gist of what we are saying. And if you've any queries after the event, please get in touch with us and we will try and fill in the gaps if there's something you missed. So thanks to Del Dupuer, who's doing our translation for us today. We have 1 Gaelgor at our sessions today. Some of the other sessions, we've more speakers, so it'll depend on the subject matter and who we have speaking. Just more Ola Steve, we had planned to have Rory Carberry, who was a marine surveyor, at this session. However, he couldn't make it today. He will be talking about legislation for boats, getting your boat on the water and all the requirements in terms of that kind of stuff, compliance. So he's not here today, but we'll have him on the session in 2 weeks' time, on the 25th of March at Water Sports. So if you'd like to hear what Rory has to say, you can join that event via Eventbrite. On a session le becreachnia ag a hín na chlog. Ach seans go racham is cúpla nóid harama, ach 3 is in luga becreachnia ag carú hééis hían. So in session seo, tá sé dírithe ar an thuras bád agus go divan ar na gníomheile timpeall sin ar nós íoscairacht. Sé an spruch atá leis na session seo nach an ólas a rins ar cábhail na deisinaí, céir é an dearc an náisiúnta, samplaí practicúla eáil agus conas customer ar bheallam. Sin ceann na príomhfáhan the agreements na session seo. Bhí mé héin agus mo chláán ar sira an nuri a méle warad agus bhí sira ítach agan. Chúmar amach ar thuras álan le Seán le bheal ar Belmullet boat charters agus bhí an inín ciam ar tróirí dún. Bhí thuras ítach agan agus Seán tá súlagam gur cuma leat go méid leabhart food. Sorry to be talking about you, Seán, but I'm going to give you as an example. We had a great trip out there. Couldn't fault it. Sean has a website but no online booking facility, and I suppose in order to get on the trip we had to have a few phone calls over and back, and of course he can't send a boat out if you don't have enough passengers, so he had to wait until he had enough people and was the weather okay and all of that. And I thought afterwards, would Francois in France or even Cindy in Cincinnati, would they be bothered making the phone calls and following up? They'd like a solution that they could just go online and book. I guess I wanted us to take a look at how the web can work harder for your business as well. So we'll have Aidan Spence at the end of the session talking about the web and how you can actually make it work hard for you instead of you doing all the work, and catering for service businesses. Tá séisiir ag labhart sa nniu, bé maiid gadar agan as gadar boat tours a talamh in Éist i Canada, agus bé Desmond O'Shea's Bridge Moran as Skelly Coast Discovery Lynn. Tá an dágnó sin mar a chéile ar bhealach, ach tá sé de gobar an dá tíomh gan Atlantach, so bei sé anna simúl clustáil faoin na cosnachtaí agus na difrachtaí at atram. In Chiltashmas why Marion Leiden as fáilt Ireland ag labhart faoi Turasóireacht Mara in nGaeltacht, agus bé mas ag clustáil why Kevin Crowley as Fisheries Ireland íoscrocht éireann. Agus mar dúirt mé ag an Sarah bé Aidan Spence ag labhart Lynn faoi an gnéad deiseach. Bé den nóméid a gach cancer agus an sin chuig nóméid like Keshni Therese. So everybody will have 10 minutes, a little bit more. We'll probably go over a little bit, and if you have any questions, put them up in the chat. Kermis Kesht gach din a Therese gach cants. And so let's get started now. Mike in Canada was delayed. Let's see if he's arrived yet. We may have to change the order of business here. Oh, Mike's there. Okay. Fáilte. So look, I'm so delighted to welcome Mike today. Mike, I did a trip to Newfoundland a few years ago and went on some of the boat tours there. I was so struck by the common things we have with Newfoundland, and I'm so delighted he's with us today. And I'm hoping this will actually maybe develop a bigger relationship between the Gaeltacht and Newfoundland, and perhaps even trips over and back to learn from each other. So Mike, you're very welcome. You won't have heard what I was saying or understood what I was saying probably, but we'll let you go. And after you, then we'll have Desmond and Breed. So thank you so much, and you're very welcome.
Well, good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, I guess. Time zone changes. My name is Mike Gatherall. We're over here in Newfoundland. I guess kindred spirits in some sense. This area that we're in is known as the Irish Heart of Newfoundland. Here in the Southern Shore, it's got a long association. Much of our ancestry comes from that area, so a lot of the names will be fairly common with you folks over there as well. I guess to get to the crux of it, I've been asked to join today, give you a little bit of an overview. We've been in operation for about this is our 36th year, I believe. Unfortunately, COVID was a little bit upsetting last year and again this year, but for 36 years now we've been at it. Pretty much every year growing. That's one of the big things. Started out fairly small, as I guess many operators do. Started out in a little 25-foot boat, and eventually came up through a series of larger and larger vessels. Right now we're running a 100-passenger high-speed catamaran, consolidated vessel operations into that. It's a mix of watching what our clients want and the need, and of course on the revenue side. So it's a delicate balancing act. Just wanted to jump on today and I guess a little bit about the importance. I think a big part of this is nowadays, of course, the importance of social media, relationships, and so on, in terms of building up your product. I mean, I can go from the nitty gritty, if you want, to cleaning toilets, all the way up to social media marketing and website design. I guess that's one of the interesting things in this type of a business is that you're really limited only by your own challenges, by your own imagination. So take responsibility for a lot of actions, which is very important, because becoming very involved in the business also means that you've got your finger on the pulse and that you can react quickly and anticipate situations as well. Very important. Nowadays, obviously the big importance nowadays is being top rated. So much effort and direction is placed on digital media and social media in particular, that I can't underscore the importance of that. But that cannot be just seen as an end unto itself, because that only occurs if and when you have a very high quality product and you're consistent. So I guess that's kind of where I'd like to start. So in order to be a high quality product, you've got to find out first and foremost what the visitors to your area are looking for. So you've got to identify either something that's absent in the market or something that you can do a little better or much better in some cases. And then you've got to go work through it to find out, well, okay, there's a need, but realistically, is there enough revenue in the need, or can I generate enough revenue to warrant going down this path? Because all too often I've seen people who say, oh, there's 200,000 miles of coastline around Canada, and there's one boat tour here and the next one is 50 miles away. Well, yeah, okay, but the market may only demand a certain amount. And just because you've got a lovely coastline and maybe you think you've got a good idea, you've also got to have that market access as well. So that's very important. So as you move up through it, I think the importance of scaling all of that up can't be understated, because one is going to obviously have a major impact on the other. So I mean, if you've got an operation where conceivably, maybe 20 people a day might be interested in your product, well, then you're going to have to charge at a fairly high rate to make it worth your while. And more as each year goes by, the demands and the requirements, particularly from the regulatory bodies, become much more onerous, much more strenuous. The amount of equipment you're going to have on your vessel, the amount of liability insurance that you're going to have to carry, all of these things will add into it, need into it. So, you know, the revenue side of it, business planning is very, very important. Can't understate that. So assuming that you've got a good area to operate, you've got access to markets, you've got demonstrated need, you've got a great product. Okay, well, now you have to fulfill. So that means that you have, if what you're offering or you're claiming to offer, you have to be able to make sure that you can provide that on a consistent basis. And that's very important because you're only really as good as your last tour, particularly never before as much as now, in the sense that with social media, that has raised that to a level of urgency that, you know, 25, 30 years ago, we would not have imagined. You know, 25, 30 years ago, if you went out and it was a miserable day, there was no whales or to that effect, and someone was a bit ticked off, yeah, but they went away and they told 5 people or 10 people. Nowadays, they've got a microphone and they get up online and they can say, well, worst ever. And when you go online, you know what comes up. You do your search and it might be your tour is the worst ever. Now that might be 1 out of 1,000, but it gets traction. So you've got to be really careful that you can be able to consistently deliver. And in cases when you can't deliver, you have to be able to come up with a good rationale as to why and do some damage control very quickly. You can't let it fester. Now, I'm not really sure how far down into the nuts and bolts of this you'd like us to go. So what I'd like to see if anybody has any questions, and then I can tailor it a little bit more to that.
Yes, because it's interesting you say, like the end of the game is selling it, and the previous that is getting it all right, and the logistics. And in a business like this that's seasonal, that requires a lot of compliance, health and safety, there's probably 50 things. So I suppose as a long-established business that's had to, I think so. If we put it to the group, if people have questions, I prefer to see what people think. But I think the things I'd be keen to hear about is, how do you manage your staffing and seasonality and keeping the lights on, and because you have a much shorter season, I think, than we have. So maybe people want to ask about that, or you know, what's up in the chat room here. So if people want to put stuff, go on.
I'm just going to address your point regarding seasonality. Yes, we have a fairly short but intense season. So we typically would commence our operations in the middle of May and will run till the latter part of September. Now, part and parcel that's due because our particular tour is based around wildlife, and that is seasonal in nature, of course. But the other side of it is the market is in Newfoundland in particular. It's very much focused around the summer visitation. So principally, our main numbers of groups would come through at that time. A lot of our meetings and conventions, our bus tours or motor coach tours, reunions, things like that nature, and of course just the general traffic that's traveling.
One question that we had before you, that somebody sent to us before the event, was asking you about, is it all scheduled that you do, or do you any charter work, or is there a mixture? How do you do that?
Again, that in our case, it's basically scheduled. So we run at peak season up to an average of 5 to 6 trips a day, 7 days a week. We can do as many as 8 departures on our catamaran. So again, we'll fit in or we'll slot in extra groups wherever we can to make the best utilization of the vessel. Lots of times we'll get people saying, well, can I charter a boat for 20 people? And the answer is, yeah, sure, you can charter it, but there's a price, because you've got to weigh that off against, okay, if I've got 20 people and I know I've got 20, that's 20% of the capacity of the vessel, and they're prepared to pay X amount of money. I've got to balance that off against the likelihood that I'm going to have 80 or 90 or 100 people at the same time who are going to pay, this much more. So of course that comes into the budgeting, because we generate revenue from the middle of May through till the latter part of September. But then after that, you've got a budget for all the expenditures that go, the rest of the year, the money goes out.
I think, and you know, Newfoundland, like Ireland, is a very special location, and we need to have a race to the top, not a race to the bottom in terms of pricing. I'm a really strong believer in that. If you charge very little, I mean, you need to, it costs money to put the show on the road, and you need to, you're not, it's not a pastime, it's a way of living. So I think you need to reflect that and not be afraid of it.
Just noticed there's a couple of questions there in the chat.
Yeah, can you see them? Great.
Yeah, percentage of business, group tourism compared to individual bookings. Right now we run about 40% group, 60% individual, and that will vary somewhat from year to year, and it will also change over time. So we partner with a lot of group tour operators, international tour operators, national and regional domestic tour operators. So, you know, we've slotted into their pre-formed itineraries, which is great. So if you can attract that kind of business, if you can get it and maintain it, that's very important, because that's, like, we consider that to be our meat and potatoes. So that's the stuff that we know that we've got on the books, you know, throughout the summer. That's revenue generally we can rely on. And then of course we fill in around that with the individual bookings. So then the important part becomes, if you've got available capacity, is to fill that. And the way that you fill that is, of course, to make it available, easy to purchase. So, like, I'm just going to share a screen for a second. I'm just going to jump to this. So if you go to our website, get this out of the way. You know, as often as we can, you know, we'll hit book now. You know, sorry, I don't know how this is appearing on your end, but it's because it's.
You can see it.
Yep, it's designed to be. It's actually designed around mobile friendly. So, which is important. But just to give you, for those of you, like, as you run down through our website, you're constantly given that option to book. So you need to complete the sale. And that's very important. And that has to be a very easy transition for people. That's very important. Can't stress that enough either. The easier you make it, the more likelihood you're going to get that sale. And the more, you know, the better your chances of filling in all those spaces.
The call to action, Mike, call to action.
So in addition to that, we also use OTAs, or online travel agents, essentially. So your Expedias, your Viators, or TripAdvisor, Get Your Guide, you know, all of these other ones. Obviously, they take a percentage off the top, but what it does is it just gives you more reach, which is important. So now, you know, you negotiate with these folks to try and obviously minimize the amount of cut that they're going to take, but you also have to accept that they are doing some work and they're doing the remarketing. You know, you don't see it in tangible items. You can't look and say, well, yeah, they got a factory somewhere, but there is a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes. And in the last 5-6 years, that percentage of our business has been increasing as it's gaining traction. You know, everybody walks around essentially with their smartphone, and you know, sometimes those bookings are coming last minute. In regards to nationality visitors, that's another question that just came in. Our markets here in Newfoundland tend to be, we run about 60-65% domestic and about 35% international. The international will run primarily US, UK, Germany. Actually, before all this COVID stuff started, our Chinese market was starting to ramp up as well. We had a number of small Chinese operators that were beginning to bring, you know, groups of 8, 10, 20 people, and they were just starting to grow. So we may get that back again once this starts to relent.
Okay, a few other questions there, Mike. Can you see them?
Yep, I'm just scrolling through them here now.
Yeah.
Breakdown of costing, fuel, and so on. You know, insurance. Again, some of these are going to depend upon the size of your vessel, your area of operation. For us, obviously, staffing and infrastructure costs are going to be your biggest ones. So, I mean, if you've got your own vessel and you can convert it, I'm not sure what your rules are over there, but over here, you've got to follow a particular code for passenger vessels. And if it's a new build, it gets fairly intensive because they're basically treated at the highest standard. So you simply can't take a fishing vessel and say, I'm going to hose it out today and carry people on it tomorrow. It doesn't work like that. Used to once upon a time, but not anymore. Insurance, our insurance has been reasonable so far. So in Canada, we're governed by the Marine Liabilities Act. So we actually carry, it stipulates a minimum. We actually carry about 500 million US in liability coverage. And that's done through indemnity and protection organizations like ship owners in the UK, actually. And so that's where we get those. In terms of rates, it's in my mind, it's relatively, it's fairly reasonable. It's not onerous, and it's a required cost. Fuel, it's going to depend on the type of vessel. If you're using small vessels with outboards, like these ribs and so on, that's going to be perhaps a higher percentage of your operating cost than if you're using a conventional vessel with inboard diesels and so on. Rough seas and unsuitable conditions. I like that one. Where we operate here, we are actually even more so in Ireland. We're about essentially about 700 miles out into the North Atlantic compared to the rest of mainland North America. We're located just outside of St. John, so we're pretty much as far east as you can get in North America. It's where we operate, it's open water. We try and find as sheltered as we can. So when rough seas or unsuitable condition, obviously safety trumps everything. So in that instance, we don't operate. We've got a great booking system so that, if we identify our forecast as such for the next day that the weather is a high incidence or likelihood that it's going to be canceled, we actually try to reach out to people as much as we can and reschedule them for a number of reasons. Number one, first and foremost, from an operating perspective, you don't want to have bad PR. You don't want to have people come up and say, oh, we showed up, we scheduled their day and then they didn't go because the weather was crap. That's a strike against you. So if you can reach out beforehand and say, oh, it looks like the weather's going to be crap. Can we reschedule? Can you come this afternoon? Or can you come 2 days time? The weather, you'll have it gives you a chance to sell it. So you get better response from your customer. So instead of them being pissed, they're actually happy because you reached out and you were proactive. And the other side of it is you stand less of a chance of losing that revenue. So you're really maximizing your yield on the vessel operations. Again, because it's limited availability, limited season, it's not like a product you can put on the shelf and hold it for 2 or 3 weeks or a month. When that day goes, that trip is gone, the capacity is gone, your opportunity to make money is gone. Your other strategies, do we have ongoing marketing campaigns? Yes, marketing never stops. Now I should say it never stops. You're always looking at different opportunities, and marketing has changed over the years, and our reliance on certain types of marketing campaigns has changed. In the last 10 years, 12 years, it's really moved or heavily focused on social media. I will admit that early on, I didn't give as much credence to social media as I should have. I'm of the generation where I really wasn't interested in Facebook and all this crap, so I kind of discounted it, and somewhat to our loss initially. So we had a little bit of ground to make up, and then we started to come back on. So you've got to again find out what markets or what social media your particular market is using. It's no good being on TikTok if your market is 55, 65, right? You've got to match your marketing strategy to your demographic. So for us, it's a combination of Google ads, Bing ads, Facebook ads, and Instagram. For the different markets that we hit. And of course, in regard to that as well, going back to our meat and potatoes would be our tour operators. So that's very much a relationship building exercise. So if we go to a travel trade show and you meet some great contacts, you can't consider that you go to that trade show 1 year and you're going to do all your business with that group for the next 20 years from that one meeting. Doesn't happen that way. You may have to go 3, 4, 5 years before they look at you and they say, okay, yeah, you've been around for a while. Maybe you're reasonably, we'll use your business. You've demonstrated that you're there, you're committed, you've got a good operation. So that's very important. And that's continually ongoing, especially with some of the larger companies, because their staffing will change throughout the years. So you may just get a great relationship and they're ready to sign on the dotted line. And the next time you go to the meeting, somebody else has taken that position and you've got to start from scratch. So you have to be on your A game at that one as well. Marine license required for boats, different licenses, yes. We operate under Transport Canada requirements, so there are different requirements for size of vessels. So usually once we go over 12 passengers, you're into a different classification of vessel standards and approvals. If we go over 24 meters, we bump into a different class of vessel design. If we go over 100 passengers, we run into additional regulations. So again, it's trying to find that area within the regulations where you can work. Not saying that you're trying to avoid regulations, but sometimes the difference of being 100 passengers versus 101 passengers on your vessel could make for a considerable difference in the amount of cost and regulatory burden that you would have to incur. Does wildlife sell itself? Yes and no. You can have great wildlife experience, but unless somebody knows about it, you've actually got to get out and market it. But you have to market it realistically. Very important. I mean, lots of times on our website, we'll show, and I'm not sure if we still got to share screen account. Lots of times on our website, we're showing, the images of what you're expecting to see, but you're going to cherry pick, and everybody's expecting that you're going to cherry pick to a certain extent. But the big thing is you've also got to be realistic. So, in the booking notations and so on, you've got to indicate that there are best times when you're more likely. We get clients that will come through the door at the end of the season, and they're trying to push you to say, yeah, what, and it's a 50% chance that I'm going to see a whale. And you know what? We tell them that, if you don't go, there's zero chance. If you go, there's some chance. It's late in the season, and you explain to them. Most people get it. Unfortunately, some don't. Do we have
Mike, I'm going to stop you there for a moment. There's an awful lot of questions there on technical stuff, and actually, it's something we might. If enough people in the group would like to have another group, just another session just about the boats and the technical stuff, we can do that, and maybe email Sarah at Údarás to show that, because I think somebody's looking for advice on licensing and boats. It's probably a lot to go into right now, Mike. But I think we can save the chat perhaps on who's asked the questions and get back to them on it.
With regards to licensing and so on, that's really going to be a huge difference. I mean, I really can't comment on the licensing from your end of it. Because we deal under an entirely different jurisdiction. Ours is federally regulated by the government of Canada.
And we're going to have a guy on the third session on the 25th, Rory Carberry. Rory Carberry, is that what yes, I think it is, who is a marine surveyor. He will talk about that stuff anyway, I think, and hopefully we can address some of those questions there. Yeah. A lot of interest here, Mike, and we're out of time. Anything else there you want to pick up, though, to ask people? I think the local network on tourism, Dominic is asking, there is a very well-established tourism representative body there, isn't there?
Yes, there is. And I mean, there are different tourism bodies. So we work through our regional organizations as well. Obviously, we can't attend every trade show or every marketplace. It just becomes too expensive. So we do partner with our destination marketing organizations. I mean, as I said, I can run the gamut from cleaning the toilets to boat maintenance to whatever. And that's also not to be understated, because, you're going to wear many hats in this type of an operation, unless you're the size of, say, Hornblower Cruises in the US, or these types of operations where you're much, much larger. You're going to have to be prepared to wear a lot of hats and be prepared to do a lot of work.
And there's, look, I probably won't keep you much longer because we have other people lining up. I think one thing I wanted to talk about, we don't have time though, but I'll just briefly mention it to everybody in the space. We have over 120 people listening, by the way, is that Mike and his strongest competitor in the area last year, when COVID came and things were so tricky and difficult, and I'll very quickly summarize what happened, but there were two competitors near the twain should meet, but they knew that neither could be running half-empty boats, and they'd both be out of business, and they collaborated and shared shared customers, I suppose, and chose to kind of, you go this day, I'll go the other day. And am I right, Mike? And because of that,
actually, what we did, both companies, we've been, fairly fierce competitors for years and years and years. We're actually next door neighbors, and my brother and one of the partners in the other company were best friends for years, and still are. So we kind of come full circle. But in regards to COVID last year, that was a completely different animal. We recognized early on that our 2020 season was going to be, if at all, was going to be minimal. With the various restrictions and so on, our province essentially shut its borders, went into lockdown mode. So our local market only accounts for about 10% of our traffic during the summer. So both companies realized that it was in our own interests, self-preservation, to work together. So basically what we did was we used one vessel. We combined our bookings onto one platform. So we actually use an online reservation system. The two of us actually use the same system, which was great. So we were both familiar with it. So we basically created a new portal, pushed all of our reservations into that portal very quickly. We rolled that out, did a series of media announcements. And so we operated one vessel. Their vessel was in the water for some other contract work, so we used that. And then we did crewing on a weekly basis. We crewed 1 week, they crewed another week. Our staff, our shore facilities, we used our shore facilities. We had a little bigger facility here on shore. So, and that was important too, because it showed the general public, particularly our resident population, who've been so used to hear about these two companies fighting for years. All of a sudden they're working together and they're using the resources of both companies. So it was important to present that in the public sphere as well. But it worked out fabulous. Both companies are top rated. We've been on TripAdvisor. We're top for 6 months. They're top for 6. It's this kind of a relationship. Always trying to keep that first place. So last year when the two companies came together, everybody was comfortable in the fact that we knew we were comfortable in the quality of service they were offering, and vice versa, which was very important to us clients.
It's just an interesting example. Look, we could listen to you for much longer, but I'll thank you for now. Thank you so much. Gcur maithagad as Gaeilge. That's how we say it in Irish, Mike. Thank you so much. Hopefully you'll stay with us. And we'll definitely go to go over, just for people who can plan their cup of tea or whatever, their lunch. We'll definitely go over 15 minutes. I'll try not to go beyond that. Gcur maithagad, Mike, bhí sé sin Harvey simul. And Éist Thomas Idolgadzi as Canada gcur, agus is even on fáilte hort go Desmond O'Shea agus Bríd Moran o Skellig Coast Discovery. Agus Des Níl Gaelge ítach Des is Irish and great, so the Bríd ag Lard Squelga, and he'll say, so I'll hand over to the two of you. Gcur maithagad as a Velin in you Bríd agus Desmond.
I'm Des O'Shea, Skellig Coast Discovery. I operate boat tours in the Kinmare Bay for the past 10 years. The Kinmare Bay, Devanaan Bay.
The sound isn't great there, Des. Is everybody else hearing him? Katie, give me a nod. Can you hear it well?
No, very low.
No, try and can you turn up something there, Bríd, like the hell?
Yeah, is that better? Hello? Is that better?
Indies here, Gcur maithagad.
Yeah, Des O'Shea here, Skellig Coast Discovery. I've been operating boat tours in the Kinmare Bay, Devanaan Bay, and the Bear Coast and the Bull Rock for the past 10 years. I'll just hand you over to Bríd Moran now, just to give a rundown on the website of Ghaeltachta.
Is Marie Galir, Bríd Moran is then Bumsa Jahar Kayla Des. Fáilte rih gacína agus Tom con Skellig Coast Curran Ahna Div Armaim. Dertar Targadi Kiri has Gaeltachta agus fógig tú le sprid na Skellige. Tá an Tálinn go bhfuil méid in Argónaí in áit co-even is a táid. Is linn an Sieve Caravan agus Campáil Wavecrest a bhanig Fishmahori Desmond agus John in 1978. Ar dhéistí go raibh anam Seán a fhorbás gábhlín ó hin. Mascán de Nóna Turasóireachta atá gainn an seo, Sieve Omlán tóca de Tehas a Glúiste agus Caravan le list de fehebh chun deiseanna gan. Agus an Sieve an seo atá rón, an Sieve an seo a Wavecrest, fan an bhíní thar ihe ar feadh seachtain nó caicís I Bubble Caravan nó in motorhomes a Glúiste. Tá siopa gin café agus ifig ólas. Tá mid lámh leis an ggósta agus Desmond an ilta ó héobh cuasaí farigide. Tá sé mar bhuail den bád tartháilthe á túla anseo in Nuireanán agus na cuasa sábháilteachta go léir déantaige. Thart diblíonn ó hain de cheannig sé bád rib olar na mara agus thosnig sé déanamh trosanna I máine I dín bád ar inán agus tros an speisialta go gafar cadúna speisialta bheith agat an dul go dtí an Bullrock I leithin spéire. Téan daoine ag siúlóid, téan siad ag roithíocht agus is minic a chuirtar na rothair ar an mád agus téan siad amach go dtí leithin spéire, go dtí Jersey agus is féidir leo dul ag roithíocht nó ag siúl ar leithin spéire. Nuair a héint amach chus farige, ní bheadh is go cén tuntas a nochtfaí os cóir dráthúla san isce nuair an gladach. Mé hén go pásanta nuair bhí mar fós mar in 1997 agus bhí mar ar míle in san New Zealand agus cúsach snámh leis na delfinne. Ba rud an speisialta domsa pásanta an tam sin. Níor ceapas go deo go méidís os mo chomach an seo in san barige agus is minic inis a císar delfinne agus sin amach ar an mád. Is féidir leat na rónta tá si siúd go farsing. Is féidir leat míl mór eiscint. Tá sé an difriúil nuair a héint amach. Is féidir leat na gnéadí eiscint. Tá plúis lábhlinn an seo, plúis na fearna a thugtar ar. Agus bhí aon rud có deasná dul ann I mína man fór agus an barís nó an phosphorescent eiscint. Is rud Harbh speisialta é. Nuair a héanta go dtí an Bullrock is féidir leat an taxolus eiscint, is féidir leat gasworks eiscint, dirty and to the other world, agus is fear sin é. Is féidir leat nuair atá an aimsir go maith, is féidir leat leis an mád tríd an tonéilán. Tá bís ar Desmond de Mina mar tá báid nua le teacht. An báid nua ná díanaar. So mar sin beidh tú ná níos má fochain ón aimsir a bheith agat. Beidh rágad bheith chun tosaigh báid nó beidir just beánaí níos fochanna a áilt. Dúirg sé seo deis de Desmond an séisiúr a leithinú, mar is séisiúr an bheag atá agat an seo hírí heas. Is áis an hiúna go Donegal ach I ré an táraigh is an sin a hagan na daoine. Im lína tá an méid sin riomhfostanna factagain daoine ag teacht agus ag lorg teacht ar léonanta saoire an seo hírí. Tá Desmond ag úsáid na men so síalta chun leis an siad idirlín atáige, úsáidin sé Facebook agus Instagram, roinnt rééis sin ar Wavecrest ar an siad I gcur Donegal agus nuair na siomhanna háitiúla ar lína. Fantáiste eile tá Desmond de Mina is féidir leat inis mar customéir dul ar lína agus áirint a dhéanamh chun dul amach go dtí an Bullrock. Leis an COVID agus is dónis féig ann im líana ochtar is féidir leat a thugant nó más grúpa atá gceist is féidir leat doraigh a thugant amach. Is tóca sin leis an má tá sé Harbh bábdach agus bíonn ar déis de lá leis an rainn talmhaíochta bia agus mara chun an cadúna sa bheith gart chun cígúireacht a dhéanamh ar an mád agus bíonn Desmond gacrad a bheith ó thaobh cuasaí sábháilteachta de a bheith suas chun dáte chun an cadúnas a gláid. So gur maithagad sin mochar síos ar maidin ar an na tosna a dhéantar an seo. Tá déis lábhlam an seo spéig sésin in an aon ceist a regat, gur maithagad.
Gur míle mágad a bhríd agus Desmond. Bhfuil éon ceist sonrach ag an grúpa le chur ag an bhirt seo le de hell? Tá a couple of ceiste bhí agan rihré ríis just a dtíobh ag agrú na turais báid agus stócha an dúlan a ríiste hagan le COVID. Ar chuir sé go mór ar mór an costas breise, I say it in English for Des, did the COVID restrictions and the challenges of trying to manage people and groups, obviously once they're on, how did you manage that in terms of getting them booked and onto a boat, and in terms of did you have to reduce your numbers on the boats? How did that work?
I reduced the numbers down to eight people, that have space between them on the boat, and unless there was groups that would be all within the one family or that would be happy to be in the boat together.
Okay, and in terms of, there's a question here, how long is the Bull Rock tour, Desmond? Des?
2.5 hours.
And would you do a few trips in a day then, depending on demand, or how does that work?
I would do a morning trip from, I would go at 10:30 and I'd be back again for lunchtime, and then I'd go back out again in the afternoon to Bull Rock. And if people then wanted to go to the likes of Kilmacalogue, I would go in the afternoon then if the people wanted to go for food.
And actually, that's something I asked both of you, Mike and Des, last week when we spoke about the food offering, and you both sort of said, well, no food on the boat, you're not going to become caterers, you're boat people, and I understand that. But I wonder what is the opportunity to couple, or maybe just to work with picnic providers or food providers on islands to sort of provide the food offering for a wider experience.
Well, trust on a specialty, Desmond, is good let agus touch har of a specialty in Donegal. Kendini suskri Kilmacalogue agus ta pub who sound agus dinin she be even on agus ta he on agus being rinke agus kjol agus spider of a muffin air agus ta she harvest is trust an is brelum hin down in Donegal gulum stair. And those Susan agus been on be just around fad. So Shin Ibru le Helen Sus Kilmacalogue.
So tá rudí mar sin an simú bríd agus des bheith an a bheith partneracht I dhéanamh le daoine eile chun rudí breise chur ar fáil agus eispeirtí eile a chur ar fáil. Okay. Gur míle maithagaí, Thomas chun do rain is go dtí chéadchaint ar eile, Marion will tú linn le a hell. Marion Leiden as fáilte Ireland, tá mé chosásta fáilte hort go Marion. So liga me lata, let you off, Marion, and hopefully the technical, we won't have any glitches as you go through it. Gur míle magat.
Gur míle magat, Maeve. Dí Green Ushla, Tás on down my kindly anseo. Marion Leiden is an dom, agus Tom me gober le fáilte Ireland. So I work in the Product Development Directorate on the Outdoor Activities team. And today I'm going to speak to you about coastal boat trips in Ireland, the visitor experience, and a little around networking and diversification. Agus tá brónarm, as Maeve said there, I've just had some technical difficulties, so Katie is kindly sharing my presentation on the screen there for me. If we could just go to the next slide, please. So there's a very strong appeal for coastal boat experiences in Ireland. We conducted some consumer research in 2018 and 19 on a wide range of visitor experiences. There was over 125 types of visitor experiences tested, 5 of which included various types of boat trips. And the good news is that the boat trips all tested really well and scored very high. So they all came in within the top 25 experiences. Coastal passenger boat experiences have broad appeal for visitors. However, our research shows that there are variations by origin of visitors. So our US visitors, they come to Ireland and they want to cram it all into one visit. So a boat trip can be too time consuming, but they are open to the experience if it is a shorter trip and it gives them a different viewpoint of the spectacular landscape. Our British visitors generally tend to take shorter trips to Ireland. Therefore, they have less time available for boat trips. But again, they are open to shorter duration boat trips if it's but it's not at the top of their priority list. Where there is most potential is with the European market, and particularly the German and French visitors. These visitors are driven by our landscape and also our history, so interactive boat trips that tick both of these boxes are exactly what they're looking for. And this map just gives you an idea of the spread of boat experiences in Ireland and kind of the range and size of some of the boat operators. So you can see that Kerry, Galway and Clare perform particularly well, particularly around the Skellig coast, as we've seen from Breed and Des, And then the Cliffs of Moher as well is particularly busy. Next slide, please. So there's a great variety of boat trips being offered, from sightseeing in the islands to nature and wildlife, including whale and dolphin watching tours, bird watching and eco tours, and also fishing charters remain really popular, particularly among the European market. But we find that natural landscapes are the primary attractor for all. Research shows that visitors are looking for experiences of around 2 to 2.5 hours in duration. They'll really only do the 3 to 4 hour kind of trips for niche trips such as wildlife watching or the leisure angling. We also find that visitors want to have an experience when they land on an island, so it's important that there be some sort of guided experience or mapping and interpretation to guide visitors through an experience on the island. So working with businesses on the offshore islands to perhaps package a visitor experience is important, or even, as Maeve said there, if there's opportunity to package in with a local cafe or a restaurant to provide lunch, it all adds to the experience for the visitor. So Ireland performs well in terms of the experiences being offered, and our research shows that the majority of trips received above average feedback, with the authentic Irish storytelling on board, many vessels coming out top as particularly standout for our visitors. Next slide, please. So we conducted additional research again last year to identify critical success factors for boat trips. So we looked at this under a number of headings and their importance in terms of priority for visitors. So we looked at location and landscape, the onboard experience, the pre-trip experience, and supporting infrastructure. It's hardly surprising, but the natural beauty of the coastline is one of the most critical success factors of coastal boat trips in Ireland. It can be the key attractor. And obviously we have inclement weather and often rough seas, so the visual experience must always outweigh any discomfort. Sites or points of interest or a change in landscape or an opportunity to land on an island also provide a highlight for the customer. So the coastline of the Wild Atlantic Way scores highly on both of these factors. This is also reflected in the visitor numbers and the demand. Smooth sailing, so customer review platforms demonstrate that there is a correlation obviously between rough experiences at sea and negative reviews. And whilst this is out of the operator's hands, an operator's ability to somehow minimise the effect through electronic stability mechanisms or onboard customer comfort is critical to achieving a high rating. As I mentioned previously, the journey duration, so looking at around the 2 hour mark is the critical preference for the mass market. However, some consumers of specialist experience, such as the whale watching, are prepared to undertake journeys of up to 6 to 7 hours to achieve their objective. The onboard interpretation, so written or audio guides to provide information and set the journey in context, are actually of low to medium importance to domestic or UK customers, but provision of multilingual information is of high importance to international customers. Staff engagement that comes out quite high. So interaction with crew is highly important to coastal boat customers, with them highlighting the importance of a friendly and reassuring crew. Ireland scores particularly strongly on the skipper engagement and storytelling, obviously for our Irish crack. And on sightseeing tours, staff members are an important part of memories for guests. They're not just going to remember the beautiful views or the stunning wildlife that they'll see, they'll also remember the incredible service and personal staff. Provision of catering facilities. So catering facilities are medium to large size boats only, which make up a minority of vessels actually operating in Irish waters. But catering facilities are not considered of high importance. However, those that do experience a trip with catering on board praise the service. Having a covered area on boats. So this is also important to offer shelter from the rough seas and the inclement weather. And the vast majority of boats in Ireland do have or provide that covered space, which is important to customers. So on the next slide then, so the pre-trip experience. Having a straightforward booking experience of medium to high level importance, and where customers are looking for clarity of information on trip times, their duration, and what to expect, safety and vessel information. So having these details on your website or a brochure is really important to visitors. Excuse me. The ease of booking last minute. As I'm sure you're aware yourselves, many customers of coastal boat trips would book their trip less than 24 hours in advance, so to ensure the best likelihood of good weather. So ensuring this ability will please visitors. On infrastructure and facilities then, ease of access to embark and disembark. So ease of movement on and off the boat at point of departure and at destinations is critical for customer enjoyment, but the current provision is generally good. And then having a covered location to wait, it's of medium to high importance to customers, and this is something that Fáilte Ireland will highlight with relevant state bodies, and we will possibly begin discussions around. So the next one then, excuse me, the commercial success of boat trips is affected by two key factors. So they're highly dependent on seasonality and unfortunately cancellations. So the majority of operators run coastal boat trips on a seasonal basis, with dates varying depending on location and sea conditions, but mostly between mid-March through to early October. And one of the greatest challenges is the weather, resulting in trip cancellations and loss of business, which is estimated at an average of about 26 days per year. So there are ways that we would see as essential in helping to overcome those issues during the season. Networking and packaging is key for boat tour operators. Boat tours are a critical part of the local tourism experience and offer visitors a new perspective or way to engage with Ireland's landscape. Recognising and ensuring that you're part of the local tourism network is key to building on your business. Networking with local tourism businesses such as attractions, activity providers or accommodation providers, and bundling and packaging your products will go way towards ensuring higher bookings on your tours throughout the season. A lot of smaller operators don't have much budget to carry out their own marketing activities, or can only do so in a small way locally, but building packages with other tourism providers can go a long way to helping to overcome this. The next level up then is working with the destination brand and your local team on the Wild Atlantic Way. Boat trips are an integral part of delivering the messaging of the brand and allowing visitors to see the wows of the dramatic coastal landscape and bringing the brand promise to life. My colleague Dahi Gallagher is going to speak actually more to this at the final seminar later in the month. But the Wild Atlantic Way team works with tourism businesses, stakeholders and the communities along the Western Seaboard to develop and present world-class visitor experiences for our visitors. So they can work with you in many ways to help build and promote your business. And this year, Fáilte Ireland will be offering business supports specifically for boat tour operators. So the details are being finalised at the moment, but they will take place in late April or early May, and they'll cover topics such as understanding the visitor journey, maximising national marketing campaigns, bringing your visitor experience to the market, and then looking at the various sales channels for promoting your business. And then just having the ability as well to diversify and offer more types of boat tours can reap rewards for your business. This is something that will be explored more in the workshops as well, but looking at potential new ideas you can bring to market. So, for example, if you're an operator, perhaps on days where you don't have the volume for, if it's a charter tour, that there is potential to offer a boat trip along the coastline or sunset tours, photography tours, or a catch and cook experience for more mainstream visitors. So that's my brief update for today. I hope you found it interesting, and if there's any questions, just pop them in the question box. There's just two important things I'd like to highlight. To keep up to date with workshops happening in your area, please make sure that you're registered on Fáilte Ireland's trade portal, so tradeportal.fáilteireland.ie, and most importantly, to ensure that your business is listed on discoverireland.ie. So this feeds into ireland.com, and all our national and Tourism Ireland's international marketing campaigns feed into both of these websites. So it's important to ensure that your business has a listing there and it's visible. Míle mágat, and take any questions if there are any.
Anna, Marion, there's one question that I'll put to you from the group, but just before that, I can't overemphasize, I say to everybody I deal with is, you know, A, you're not in tourism if you don't have a website or some kind of digital presence, or if you're not registered with Fáilte Ireland. And I think anybody who's even thinking of, you know, it's an amazing resource, and the people on the ground are fantastic. Each region has executives on the ground to work with you. Even if you're at a concept stage, you know, and between Údarás and Fáilte, we provide a really comprehensive, hopefully suite of support. And it's not always about the Jonetas. It's about everything else as well. So I think I can't overemphasize the importance of being registered with the because then you're on the agenda and you will get all the information on what's happening. I think that's really, really important. And just one thing I thought I'd say about the weather, and I mean, the weather is the weather, but one thing I'd love to see, I don't know how we do it, is you literally had these units across the coast where you could buy rain gear in a hurry, proper rain gear that'll keep you dry. But again, it's back to the boat guys. There should be part of the standard automatic email that goes out when they book the day before is bring your rain gear, bring your boots, bring the stuff, and then it's fine. I mean, I remember being on Scattery Island 2 years ago, and it rained in Belmullet last year even, and we had the gear, so we didn't mind. So it's all about being prepared. And again, that's part of the offer that the operator should include in their communication. So Marion, just a question here on pesca tourism. I never heard of pesca tourism. So Brennis is asking about that. Could you talk a bit about pesca tourism? Do you eat it or do you look at them, or I'm not sure what that means, Marion?
That's a good one as well. Sorry, I haven't heard of pesca tourism. Is it fish related?
Is it to do with fishing, Brennis, or is it to do with because that's another thing. Well, we're going to have Kevin. I'll tell you what, we have Kevin Crowley who's coming on to talk about from inland fisheries. So we leave it, we let him share what he has to say, and maybe then it might answer some questions. And also, just before we go on, Mike Gadab has shared a lot of stuff in the chat room on practical information for the boat people, if you want to check that out as well. So, for Amila Mod Marion, we should hard of Simul, Agus, we should eat the ground Curlahar and Whale Gad of fresh and on the PowerPoints in Whale, so come it's Buechas Shin. Welcome to Nishkasi Kevin Crowley, Fáilte Kevin, and Huigan Bluefin Tuna, Agus, over to you, Kevin. Gurmahaga.
Thanks, Maeve. Can you hear me?
You're a bit low, actually. Can you maybe?
Hear me better?
Yeah.
Perfect. Sorry, I had headphones on to drown out some toddlers in the house here.
We don't mind the toddlers, as long as we can hear you.
They might make more sense. Okay, I'll just try and share my little presentation here. Okay, can you all hear me?
Yeah, all good, Kevin.
Perfect. Dúí Valair, go leis Ghaeltachta bhfuil in an labhairt trí Gaeilge, but I know there are other people on the call today who don't have much Irish either. So just to introduce myself, I'm an angling advisor with Inland Fisheries Ireland, a role I've been doing for almost 17 years. Prior to that, I worked in fisheries research on salmon and trout. I was born and grew up in Dublin, but I've been living on the West Coast for 24 years, from Cork up to Donegal and Galway for 17 years now. I'm an avid angler myself, which is kind of important to my role. And I fished up and down the West Coast, so I know all the areas that we're talking about today. My role with IFI involves many aspects, but the main one relating today is angling promotion. A large part of my job involves trying to get people to come fishing in Ireland and spend their money here. So I compile regular angling reports that feature on our website, and they're received on an e-zine. I organise and run journalists' visits from foreign angling magazines and TV programs. I deal with a lot of requests for information from prospective visitors and put them, potential customers, then in contact with service providers. And then I generate some photo and video content myself for web use. So I do get out of the office once in a while. Just a quick overview of the angling, the value to the economy. We've commissioned market research over the last number of years with several market research companies, including TDI, Ipsos, and we work with the ESRI as well. It gives us a good feel for the Irish angling market and participation rates. The overall economic spend or economic contribution of angling varies by year, but it's generally between 800 to 900 million euro. That's supporting jobs of about 11,000. To put this in context, in 2018, the entire seafood industry in the country, commercial fishing and aquaculture, was worth 1.25 billion, supporting 14,000 jobs. So it's significant. 327,000 adults in Irish adults over the age of 15 identify as anglers. Some are casual, fishing only occasionally for mackerel. I'm sure many here can identify with that. Many are serious anglers as well, fishing regularly, traveling to fish, making multiple trips per year, and with significant spend on transport, food, accommodation, boat hire, tackle, and bait. The spend on sea angling is estimated at 200 million plus, supporting about 3,000 jobs across the country. So angling tourism. Angling tourism is a bit different to general tourism. So Fáilte Ireland, they're always talking about the different Wild Atlantic Way and hidden heartlands, etc., which are great. But angling tourism, it's more dispersed. It's more heavily concentrated in rural and peripheral areas and away from the large urban centres. Season is longer. Many anglers make trips in the shoulder periods, April, May, and September, October, so they can provide additional business when away from the main tourist season. Anglers stay longer in an area. They're not doing half the Wild Atlantic Way and staying one night in a location. They make multiple trips per year. They'll come back to an area. If they have good fishing and a good experience, they'll come back. And they build relationships in an area with, whether it's with accommodation providers, whether it's with charter boat skippers, the local pub or a nice restaurant. They build those relationships and they maintain loyalty to an area. And they come back year after year in many cases. And I know a Dutch family that I've been dealing with, and they've been coming for 25 years. And I remember meeting them when their kids were 2 and 3 years old. And now their kids are growing up and starting to bring their girlfriends back to Ireland for holidays. While the main focus of today's talk is on marine fishing and boat fishing, it's important to remember that salmon fishing is a very popular pursuit in these areas and attracts many tourists to Ireland. But like sea angling, accommodation service providers and anyone working in tourism should familiarise themselves with the local fisheries. We have some of the best salmon and trout fisheries in the world, concentrated in the west coast, from the prolific River Moy to the many small spate rivers from Donegal to Kerry. Many of our lakes are renowned for salmon and sea trout fishing, from Lough Corran in Kerry all the way up to Glenveigh and Donegal and many lakes in between. With some of the best brown trout fishing in the world, particularly the Great Western lakes such as Corrib, Mascara, Con, etc. Salmon anglers tend to have higher income and spending power. They stay longer in an area, and they do spend more money in an area than other anglers. So sea angling, to go back to the main topic, anyone wanting to make money from sea angling, you must know the product, okay? Sea angling can be simply divided into boat angling and shore angling. There are further subdivisions, but we'll stick with those for now. So boat fishing, you're talking deep sea fishing, generally involves hiring a charter boat run by an experienced and skilled skipper and going offshore for a full day's fishing. Anglers may be targeting certain species such as blue shark, or they may be doing a certain type of fishing which produces multiple species. They might be fishing reefs or fishing a particular wreck. Shore fishing can be using bait, fly or lure, and involves fishing from the shore or wading in shallow inshore water, generally targeting 1 or 2 species. Bass fishing is very popular, particularly on the south and southwest coasts. And while many of us target mackerel in summer, to serious anglers, mackerel are an important source of bait, and they're generally chasing bigger fish. So lure fishing has become more popular in recent years, and fly fishing as well. And these are more active, more walking and wading to seek out fish. Boat and shore anglers may have large amounts of kit and clothing. The lure and fly anglers generally travel much lighter. Charter boats in Ireland are generally 35 to 45 feet long, licensed to carry generally 10 to 12 anglers, and they're certified for passenger use by the Marine Survey Office. And I think Rory will be talking a lot more about that in the third session. Only MSO approved boats can take passengers. They operate from piers and harbours all around the coastline. There is a concentration on the south and southwest coasts due to a number of factors: better weather and sea conditions, generally warmer sea temperatures, a greater variety of species. But the whole coastline can produce excellent fishing, and some areas can even become world renowned, as I'll talk about shortly. Domestic market is often focused on edible species: mackerel, pollock, cod, goldfish, ling, turbot, etc. Domestic anglers also chase specimen fish, large fish over a certain size per species, or trophy fish like blue shark and bluefin tuna, which I'm going to talk about. So this year in particular, we're probably looking at only the domestic market. Foreign anglers can catch bigger and better edible fish if they go to places like Norway. So the foreign angler coming to Ireland, you're not marketing to them for edible fish. They're coming out for other reasons like specimen fish, trophy fish, or simply the overall Irish experience, not just the fishing. I mentioned bluefin tuna. So this is a very exciting newish product that we're looking at here. Bluefin tuna is one of the fastest and most powerful fish in the ocean. Very prized by anglers. It's a newly developing fishery in Ireland with catch and release at its core. Tuna undertake huge migrations over the year, and the fish are off our west and northwest coast in particular from July to November, feeding on shoals of bait fish. They're formerly endangered, but the recent improvements in stocks mean that large numbers of these fish are now feeding in Irish waters in late summer and autumn. The main centre is Donegal Bay, very prolific in Donegal Bay, and boats there are catching a lot of bluefin tuna. However, they are being caught around the coast. We had a lot more fish caught off the Cork coast last year, and we have some angler charter boats now licensed on the west coast starting to catch a few fish. It can be a very lucrative fishery with anglers with 2 to 4 max for tuna. They're willing to pay €800 plus per day to chase these fish. Many fish anglers, trophy hunters travel around the world to catch bluefin tuna, and now they can just hop on a plane and come to Ireland to catch it, a short hop for many. Legally, we didn't have a quota before, so we weren't allowed to target them. We still have no quota, but we have been licensed for a small catch and release tagging fishery. So we have 15 charter boats licensed the last couple of years. I think that may be more this year. Because it goes into November, it generates a longer season in these areas and brings in more revenue in those shoulder periods. So if you're getting into fishing, if you're in fishing, if you have people staying with you who want to go fishing, you need to know your customers, you need to know your product. A lot of this is targeted at accommodation and other service providers as well, not just boats. First of all, flexibility. Angling is not a 9 to 5 or 10 to 5 activity. It may involve early morning starts. It may involve getting back late in the evening. And because of these reasons and the lack of flexibility may be offered, many anglers choose self-catering accommodation. But flexibility is vital. Angling is an outdoor activity. We get a lot of rain. We don't mind the rain because we've good wet gear, but we do need somewhere to dry wet clothes before going out again the next day. So if you can provide a drying room or a large closet with a heater, that'll go a long way to getting repeat business. Anglers often bring their own bait, or if they buy it locally, they need to store it overnight. A bait fridge or freezer is a great asset, or just being able to accommodate their needs in your own existing cold storage will go a long way. Finally, what everyone else needs, good food and drink and entertainment, and local knowledge. An angler coming along, he wants to know where is fishing well, or who can take him out fishing, or where the local tackle shop is. If you have all that information, it'll go a long way. How do you attract customers? Mike mentioned social media. Social media is absolutely vital in the angling world. Anglers are very much into social media. Facebook is full of angling pages and groups, and people are talking and swapping ideas and information the whole time. Update your social media, network with anglers, interact with anglers, post photos and reports, link back to your website. Be very active. Have a good website that works, has good imagery and is up to date. It has to be up to date. Utilize the media. You can send us angling reports. We get them out to thousands of people every week. We can amplify your reports to a lot more people. And we send it to media as well. We have contacts with all the angling press. You could attend trade shows. We attend trade shows across the continent every year, where anglers come and they're buying tackle, but they're also meeting destination providers. We used to do these with Fáilte Ireland and Tourism Ireland. However, they have concentrated more on general angling or general tourism shows the last few years. But we attend these shows ourselves, and we often have space for trade on these shows. So they're a way to meet customers face to face and sell your product. Specimen fish reports. So if you catch big fish, we publish a specimen fish guide every year, a booklet, giving all the best fish that were caught for each species in the previous year. It's an angler's Bible to many of the anglers. So if you're at a charter boat and you're catching a lot of specimens, specimen hunting anglers will make bookings with you. I can't stress enough, imagery is vital. And I'm not being sexist here, but anglers are mostly male, and men, we're visual creatures. We love a stunning big fish shot. Take lots of photos and share them widely. Okay? Video is also becoming vital too. So myself, as an angling advisor in IFI, what can I and my colleagues do to help you? First, we have a website, fishinginireland.info. I'll post the link at the end. It's a one-stop shop for angling information, where to go, who to book with, what you'll catch, etc. We maintain listings of service providers, charter boats, guides, fisheries, boat hire operators, etc. If you're an angling business, once you're licensed and insured, we will list you. We do weekly angling reports throughout the season. They've already started, they'll run into November. We have a circulation list of thousands of, I'm not sure exactly how many it is, but it's quite large, who get it on an email every week. We work with journalists as well. We do a lot of angling marketing. We attend those angling shows abroad. We do journalist trips and media promotion. When we do get a bit of budget, we do advertising in the angling press. We build and maintain a presence in the international market. We produce a lot of brochures, maps, and guides. If you're a hotel or a B&B and you want to know what fishing is in the local area, get on to us. We may have copies of guides that you can have for your customers in the lobby. And we produce a lot of photo and video content. We'll be doing a lot more of that as well this year, because we've recently got a lot more capability in that sense. Finally, what resources? Those are links that I was talking about. So fishinginireland.info, that's our one-stop shop for fishing information. If you're providing reports, or you want to send in a report, or you have a query, you can email us, angling reports, or you can email me directly. That's my email there. And to echo what other people have said, networking is also very important. When I go to angling trade shows in France or Germany, people want to book, but they want a package deal. They want accommodation and fishing together. Now, a lot of the salmon fisheries will produce that. The likes of Loch Ina, and I think Dominic might be on the call, they have fishing and accommodation all in one place. I don't know if there are very few charter boats that do that. You know, a charter boat linking up with an accommodation provider to produce a package. Going to a trade show with a package will find an awful lot more interest and a lot more business than just, well, here's the fishing and here's a few B&Bs that you can contact yourself. So networking and packaging a deal together is huge. Sinead, Gcur Magav, I may have gone on too long, or I may have gone on too short. I'm not sure.
Anna, Kevin. Just as we're finishing up there, thank you so much, Gcur Magav. What you were saying there, and we talked before this too, that whole linking of accommodation, other providers with the boat people, with the whole thing. There's probably a job there for us, and we look at that and having another session where it's purely bringing together all those different elements. They can talk and meet and perhaps packages together. So it's definitely worth following up. Now we're short on time, but I do have a question as a consumer or a potential customer. Okay, the angling and the kind of the established fishermen who have the gear and the boots and who know what they're doing and want to come out are a very particular market, and they're a very lucrative market because they stay in the area they spend. Is there any value at all in the kind of person who isn't a proper fisherman or woman, or just do it on their holiday for the day, go out? Would they destroy? Oh, don't worry, Kevin.
Excuse me.
Would that kind of customer just wreck your gear, or is there a market for the likes of me going for the day out where I'd probably destroy? I wouldn't destroy the gear, but that kind of person who wants an experience on a boat fishing, but is not an expert and may never do it again, but just wants it. Is that a viable market?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I have rods worth up to €1,000. So, you know, I use those myself, and no one else gets to use those. An awful lot of charter boats, they have a stock of much cheaper, more robust equipment, you know, available for people that they a nominal extra fee. Well, it's a way of generating a bit of additional revenue. They hire the gear to customers and provide the traces and all that, and the weights, etc. as well.
It could be something that you'd add to your website for the kind of person who wants something to do. They're coming to Connemara or to Donegal or wherever for 3 days. What do we do on Tuesday? Bring the kids and the family out, and mom and dad can fish. They may never fish again. They won't catch anything, but there's something there for them without. Yeah, it's just, I think it's an interesting one. And
well, many charter boats, that would be a large part of their business, you know, with people coming who don't have the gear and will rent the equipment. Yeah.
Okay. Kevin, I'm tight on time, so I know I'm going to move on fairly quickly to Aidan now. Kevin, and we have your email anyway, so thank you. Yes. And I'm sure people will be in touch. So Gramagi, we're on the home straight, and I'm giving nobody a break, but they can run away if they want to for a minute for a cup of tea. Aidan, we're delighted to have you with us. I asked Aidan, I suppose, was the whole, I really wanted to get the digital piece. It's so important, and it's mentioned by everybody. And let's talk to somebody who actually builds these tools and uses them, because it's one thing I've seen with clients of ours. I put up the website, I'm great, but I mean, unless the website's working for you, it's only it's like a brochure. So what are you going to do with it? So Aidan, you've heard everybody so far, so I think I'll leave it over to you,
Hi, thanks very much for that. I'm just going to share my screen here, just 1 second. And I'll bring up this presentation here. So you should be able to see that now. Yeah, okay, perfect. So I am Aidan Spence. I am a digital marketing consultant. I own a digital agency in Donegal. I've been in business over 9 years. I help a lot of businesses get online, from everything from e-commerce, booking systems, you name it. I kind of cover every angle. So I'm going to chat today about online ticketing and online ticketing systems. There's loads out there. There's so many choices. I'm going to kind of focus on one that I've used a lot for a lot of different projects, everything from tour bookings, boat tours, even Irish colleges. So it's called Bookio. So I'm going to chat about them a little bit. So first, I'm going to chat about removing the bottleneck. So the bottleneck in the business, if anybody who isn't using a booking system, is probably yourself. You're probably the admin. You're dealing with everything from the phone calls coming in to take a booking. You're having to follow up with the customer then if you miss them, or if there's a problem where the boat tour isn't going to go ahead, that you're having to go through your diary and ring all these people and try and get that sorted. And that takes up a lot of time. That's a lot of time you could be spend either working on the business itself instead of working in the business. So really, with the likes of a booking engine, you're never missing a booking. You know, you've got it on your website. People can go on, they can check their availability, see if it suits them. They can make the booking, do everything without having to interact with you. And the great thing about that as well is, I suppose, people, for instead of phone calls, people who, are on their holidays or from America, if they're from Canada, they don't, they're not going to be spending, I suppose, their credit to make international phone call to make a booking to try and get through. Even myself, I'm 34 years of age. I don't think I've ever actually called any sort of tour company to make a booking. I'd always do it online. It's just, so it's that generational thing too. We're just happy to do everything online and not really communicate with a real person. So we focus on it that way. But we're able to take these bookings completely online. Just it's a no-brainer to make everyone's life a bit easier. The great thing about it as well, you can communicate everything with a single click. So a lot of these booking engines, such as Bookio, for example, they'll let you message everyone. So for example, I make a booking, I'm going to get a notification that my booking's confirmed. You can go on, choose your time. Let's say you have a sale time at 3 p.m. on Friday, but it's not going ahead. You can click in, you can text everyone from the booking engine or email them to let them know it's that the booking's not going ahead, and you can even send them a link to help them easily reschedule. So it really makes it easy for you to manage that. That's probably a 2-minute job compared to maybe 20 or 30 minutes and then missing calls and trying to get back to people. So it really does just make it a lot easier. As well, with that there as well, you can follow up with people as well for the likes of reviews. So instead of you trying to get people to leave you a review on your Google page or on TripAdvisor, you can automate all this here as well. So 2 days after my booking, I automatically get an email or a text message asking me to leave a review. If you had a good time, posted it in there. It just makes it really easy to do some marketing and have it all automated. One of the great things as well is you can reduce the no-shows and still get paid. So you have multiple options. You can either have people pay a deposit for their booking, you can have them pay in full, or you can have them just leave their credit card details. So with them leaving their credit card details, you can basically just, if let's say they don't show up, you can go back to the booking and just charge them then. So it's completely up to your discretion, and for yourself as well. If you're wanting to use that, do it that way as well. I suppose it's handy if you prefer to take cash than taking credit card payments. So you're open to those options as well. Integration's a big thing as well. So assuming most of you have websites, if you don't, you can always get in touch with me. But for your website, you can really easily integrate these with any website. It'll be a little snippet of code. You can give it to your web developer, or even if you know how to do it yourself, you'll just get a copy of this little snippet you can put into your website, and that'll let you start taking bookings straight away. You can also link it up with your Facebook page as well, and even kind of put the links into the likes of TripAdvisor and all as well. So it kind of works that way. And this is it as well. You have your complete integration as well with being able to print out your manifest too. So if you're wanting to do it the analog way from the office in the morning, where you can go out and you can print out your manifest for the day for who's coming to the tours, and then after that, then I suppose you can also use your mobile phone as well. If you have a good signal, you can access it very easily to view all the bookings. So I kept it nice and quick for everyone there. So if you have any questions for me on the bookings or how to use them, just let me know.
I see Paddy Byrne has just joined us, or maybe he was here already.
Yeah, Paddy is probably testament to having this problem last year. Paddy approached me last year because he was having the big issue of hundreds of people trying to call him, and him either having no signal or obviously out doing multiple tours a day and having to try and get back to all these people. So me and Paddy had a discussion, went through his options, and then we basically came up with a booking engine for him. And now for Paddy, I can see he has bookings into September this year, even with people who's already booked in for tours, and it's all automated on his website, and it's made it nice and simple for him.
So questions, anybody in the group, anything kind of technical or even on a more broader sense in terms of marketing? Any questions for Aidan that they have?
Everyone's all good.
Yeah, I suppose the thing, the money back and paying if you don't turn up, and I think that's really important. If somebody decides, sure, I won't bother today, that you get your money. But then of course there's the other challenge for people is, okay, if I haven't enough people on the boat to run it, I can't run it and I need to give a refund. But I mean, when we spoke, I think we said it's all about the communication. Again, you send an automated maybe email out saying, thank you for your booking. We run on we need a minimum order quantity or whatever it's called for people. We will let you know that more, whatever. It's really all about community. You were saying that the system can do all that if you use it the way,
Exactly. You can even communicate. You can even do it. Let's say you have 7 people in that tour, but you need 20, for example, to run it. You can just do an automatic refund as well. So it just refunds everybody in their card as well. All the messages, all the emails are automated for that too. So it really does make it a lot simpler. There is, because of COVID last year, I'd say I've seen there's just hundreds of new booking engines kind of popping up. There's a lot of ones that are really good value. Bookio, the reason I said I have no affiliation with them, just for the record, but the reason I went with that is just they're tried and tested. They're going for years. They've come across every single scenario, and their back end isn't as pretty as some of the other ones, but their features are fantastic, and they really do tie in every single angle for you. I see someone's asking about multilingual.
Costs,
Yeah, or the cost, yeah. So their costs can go from, I think, from €30 to €80 a month. It's month by month as well. So obviously, if you're only operating in the summertime, you can only pay for then, but your whole account will sit there during the winter months. So it's not costing you anything, but you'll have your entire customer database there as well. And that's another great thing as well. You can be also sending out marketing emails as well to your previous customers. One of the places I actually discovered using the Bookio system was down seeing fungi last year down in down in Kerry. I just seen how easy the engine was and how well it was working for them. And, they're taking, I think last year, especially their tours are back to back. So, you could really see that this is a good and tried system. So it really does work well.
So you can manage the busy times, but also I guess this business of running a boat with 2 people, what you could do is I suppose you can channel things. So you decide I'm only open 3 days out of the whatever, or 5 days. So then you can drive people to it. If they fill up, then you can decide I'll run another day.
Yeah.
And I know, but the idea of this is actually that the bookings aren't coming that morning. Mind you, when we started this seminar, they were still booking for the seminar, by the way, at 11:10 even. But the point is, if your system is robust enough, they'll have booked before they leave Dublin or France or wherever. So that, like as you say, he's got bookings for September. So you can then really plan your business and you know what's ahead. And I think that's where the real power of it is.
Exactly. And you can even set thresholds for yourself too. So if you don't want people booking, let's say 4 hours before the next trip, for whatever reason, you can set those as well, or you can have people booking up to the last 10 minutes as well, just to fill the slot. So it
depends on exactly.
Yeah, it depends on the business. And the things you'll find, guys, as well, all these booking companies, they're really keen to get people on board. They have free trials that you can go and look at the back end, and a lot of them also offer presentations as well, where you can come on and actually talk to them on Zoom, and they'll go through all the features and answer all your questions, and that's completely free. And it'll give you a little taste of it as well, and see if it's the right engine for you.
I see a practical question coming in here, but I guess just on an overall thing, I know Fáilte Ireland's big initiative in the next year to 2 years will be getting everybody more digital as well. And they're going to be spending a lot of time and money, I think, on advice and seminars and workshops. So again, another reason to be registered with them. So I suggest, so that will be coming up as a subject for sure over the next year. Nothing has proven more. The ones that could change quickly and get online are the ones that were able to manage their businesses better. So Fáilte are definitely focusing on that. They had a huge, 5,000 people at their industry event about a month ago, and that was a big part of what they spoke about. And Dahi will probably talk a bit about that on our 3rd session. And again, so I suppose my big thing I want to get across to people is going to a website designer isn't enough. So Aidan, you could just throw up a brochure site or a site with your own homemade booking system, linking it to some kind of payment. But that's making it very hard for yourself. There's stuff out there that can do the heavy lifting, Yeah. And as you say, it might be this system, it might be a different system, but it's just to be aware of what you're asking for when you go to your web people and your digital people. Yeah. I need this,
And I would advise as well, for anyone who's going to a web designer, sometimes a web designer might just offer to, make a bespoke system basically when they're developing the website. And I would just say, it's, you're not reinventing the wheel. There's the third part.
And I'm looking at Paddy Byrne says here, if I can do it, anybody can. So there you go, if I can manage it. So again, and maybe it'd be worth, I don't know how many people are actually in this particular core business of boat tours, and maybe if you want to get in touch with us afterwards, if there was a good enough reason to have a special group or a networking group of just boat operators, we would love to help that, but that's another day's work, I guess. So look, we're running out of time, Tabroner, and we're over time as promised, but I said I'd get you out by 1:15. So my Harvey buich as gatan a bhí an seanniu. Mike, Taylor bhí agan, I'm looking simple Breed, agus Desmond, agus Marion, agus Arnoe, Kevin, agus Aidan. For a mille mahagi. I think it's been a great event. I'd love to have a lot of chat, I suppose, and interaction, but it's hard. That's a half day's event, I guess, and that's a different kind of meeting. But we've had up to 110 in the early. We're now up to about 85 people, which is pretty impressive. My Anna Buich. Tá gá sesiúnel agan, ceann an seachtain de thugann Jardín, agus ceann ar an fiche cúigiú lá. Tá na sunraí a leog ar Eventbrite. Just Google Eventbrite Mara, agus you have to do an notice a leog. Well, an buchas mór gáil le Katie, ní gannach atá linn comá, when you Katie galorgan over Rivray, ag agrú an Zoom, agus an session, agus gur mag Adele de prayer atá Jenna van Astruchan. Adele's doing the chat and translation. She'll be working a lot harder next Thursday, my Adele, with a lot more Gaelgory. Tá muid géirí bheith díris gantanga agus an ócad a bheith ritrí Gaelga agus tá sé dachar ach tá muid ag Ibramach Bally Éagsla commission anamh. Gur míle maithagí, if you have any questions after this, you can email us on sira@údarás.ie or go through Eventbrite. You probably can ask questions through that as well. This is our first time doing a seminar on Zoom, so we're just learning as we go. Agus gur míle maithagí, as I say, the panelists all gave their time today. I really appreciate it. And that's sort of the cost made ever reached. There's some in with manoti, I think done all I'm supposed to do. Gur míle maithagí agus is mission méid mar dúirt mé agus tá sulam si bheith eáil go physical go lua. Agus tá sulam mé séasar maithagah, have a very good season and sin é. Gur maithagí. Slán.